Hello friends, welcome back to C++ programming. As we discussed in the last session, that though we are learning C++, but actually motive is not to use C++ for the applications, but to explore C++ as C++ is a first language which provides a program architecture that is object-oriented programming, and being an extension of a C, as we all know that C is a mother language of all the programming. It is popularly called as mother language because every language which we are using presently also for the reason of productions and the development of the software are the extended versions of C. So C is our first language which is useful for the productions in the 1970s till early 80s, and that language, because we are not learning C again, we are learning C for understanding the programming approach of structured and procedural oriented. And then the next approach what we are learning using C++, that is object oriented programming architecture or object oriented programming. Let us discuss about this session 2 for C++. Now, as discussed prior, programming architectures are mainly categorized in two types. One is your structured or procedural oriented. Now, structured and procedural oriented, as discussed in the prior session, that the programming approach follow this kind of architecture. Means preprocessor directives is on the top. I already explained you about the concept of preprocessor directives. Means the predefined functions library is actually defined in an header file, and you have to specify that all the header files hash includes stdio, hash include conio, hash include math, hash include C type, that all the header files you have to specify on the top of the main. If you want to declare global variables on the top of the main, if you want to define a macro on the top of the main, that time there is an area which is defined on the top of the main, and that is called as preprocessor directives area. And then we need to start programming from main. We have to write firstly the main, and then you know very well declaration of variables, input statements, process statement, control statements, and then finally the output. And then you have to divide this main module into the various submodules to achieve the programming modularity, and then you can refer these all the functions, that is called as submodules. You can, these are the bidirectional things are there. You can call from the main, you can call the functions from any other functional definitions likewise. So this programming architecture up till now we studied. So these architecture having its own advantages, right? Structure oriented programming, what we discussed up till now, there are two types of mainly programming architectures. Now friends, to understand one thing very clearly, though we are learning languages, but internally you have to learn programming approaches. Every language having their own advantages, at the same time limitations as well. So earlier, because otherwise there will be only one language remains in the universe, and that was C. But as you know, as per the need of that day, we need to update ourselves, we need to change ourselves. The need of 70s will not match to need of 80s, and need of 80s will not match to like 2020. So the approach, things will be the same, but the approach, and that is why we need to update the approach as per the requirement. The toolkits, the programming languages which are available, they should have the ability to provide the needs of recent, and only those who is having the ability of or capability of extensibility will survive. What it means, basically the language which is designed in 70, how we are discussing about C in 2020. The reason is it got the extensibility, means you can use that and develop a new version, develop a updated version. That we discussed in the last session, that C was designed by Dennis Ritchie, and C++ is designed and was designed with by Projan Stostow. It's a completely different language, but what he used, whatever the knowledge, whatever the library it exists in a C, as it got the extensibility, they update that and design a new language called as C++ over there. Anyway, now focus on the programming then. Now the advantage what we get in a structured and procedural programming language, the first advantage that it got the top to bottom programming approach. As you know, if you are a C developer, there is a sequence. You have to, okay, pre-post directive area, then you go for the main declaration of, yesterday we discussed that there is no flexibility of declaring variables anywhere else. You have to declare all the variables, whatever the set of variables you need in the complete program, that you have to declare on the top. Means there is a sequence, there is a steps involved, and that is the reason why it is called as a structured, because there is a structure given. The skeleton, the structure is given to us, okay, and we are just fill in the blanks sort of. It means, okay, here is the declaration of variables, here is the input statements, here is the process statements, like sort of. There is no flexibility that you can define the things. You can define everything in the non-sequence and then they can refer sort of. That is not the approach of a structured and procedure-oriented programming language. Right. So, top to bottom programming approach, that is one. Then the second is division of main into various sub-functions. Means we need to identify, this is the main module. Now this main module we need to divide into the various sub-modules. Right? Division of main program into the sub-programs. We need to identify that how many sub-procedures are involved in it. As we know, every system, just like for the sake of understanding, every system is a combination of various subsystems, right? Every organization is a combination of various sub organizations, departments. Organizations is sub departments, and in the cumulatively that all the sub departments, accounting, then the sales, the marketing, the production, so that all departments combinedly will form a company or a production, a manufacturing unit. In the similar manner, whenever you are defining a main program, whenever you are defining a main module, I'm now changing bit terminology over there. Now we are going for the enhancements of the programming approach. So it's like earlier, it's approach. Approach means what? Approach means the way of dealing. The language is the same, as I said yesterday and the last sessions, that whatever the programming you are doing in a C, that will be completely acceptable to C++. But C++ having its own features, right, and the extensibility over C. So entire C is acceptable and with extensions. That is what the C++ makes. Anyway, now division of means while writing programs, we have to divide this main module into various sub modules, and we have to identify that okay, this is what the main process. Now, if you are trying to define everything in the main process, so it becomes lengthy code. It extends to the limit, and something is lengthy, something is too vast, may not be easy to debug, may not be easy to maintain, right? And due to that, because programming is not a task of a single person. Okay, while developing projects, it's a like okay, many functions can be defined by various. As I said, I had given you the example. And organizations cannot be run by any one individual or any one department. It has to be divided. That the coordination between the sales, between the finance, between the productions, between the marketing, is all departments, right? Will come together and coordinate, and the functions their role properly, efficiently. Then the organizations will able to grow or able to perform, able to achieve the objectives. The same thing is over here. First of all, while writing programs, just like every organization sets their objective, these are the objectives we need to achieve, and then to achieve these objectives, these are the departments we need. In the similar manner, while writing programs also, the programmer have to think about, okay, these are the objectives I need to achieve through program. So to achieve this objective, okay, I need these functionalities, right? And then you coordinate, then you co-off, then you refer these all the functionalities in the main. So in this manner, the first thing we need to learn, the first logic we need to learn, how to divide this main process into the various sub process and refer to that. Hope you understand me. Okay, so division of main into various sub functions provides programming modularity. This is called the programming modularity. Friends, right now, though we are now the beginners, so we are just concentrating about okay to get the output of a particular program, but we need to gradually increase the programming abilities. Programming abilities in the sense we need to follow the approach also. Right now, approach means way of dealing. Right. So, if you don't define your program by using modularity, means division of main module into the various sub modules, then, as I just recently discussed, it become a complexible code. It become a lengthy code, so it will not be extensible. It will not be manageable. It will not be maintainable. These are the limitations of that. So, right. So probably while discussing this kind of approach, right, we need to discuss about the limitations, advantages, and how to. It's a way to behave, sort of. Okay, like it's a way to programming rather than programming. It's a way of programming, sort of. Okay. Anyway, now go to the next point over there. Emphasis is on the logic. Emphasis means focus. A C programmer having the focus on the logic only, because okay, this is what the loop, the branch, and everything, and then okay, fine, I'll get the output. He was not focusing, he or she was not focusing on the data, right? The data security. He or she was not thinking about okay, because of the reusability and many more things are there. We were just focusing on the logical part. Okay, if this is the problem, this is the logic, right? So emphasis and focus is on the logic rather than the data. But just understand one point. You are writing programs for processing the data. Just ask a question to yourself, why we are writing programs? To process the data, to provide the solution, to resolve the problem. Now what is the problem? It's a data processing problem. Right? Data processing means what? You are accepting the data from the user. You are manipulating with that data manipulations, and give the results. So ultimately your program is a data manipulation sequence, or a logic written for manipulating data, processing data. So in case of your programming language like structured and procedural programming language, the main emphasis, the main focus is on the logic rather than the data security and all what we're talking about, right? Then the sequence is very important. Pre-processed directives, main, as I said, declaration of variables, input. This sequence is important. You cannot skip any sequence. You cannot skip any step. In the last example also we discussed that, okay, you don't have a liberty to declare variables anywhere else. You have to be in the sequence. That is what, like, sequence is more important. So now these become advantages. These are the advantages. But as you know, like, okay, these advantages also in another reference, as I said, okay, the life the lifestyle and the way of living and the approach followed by 70s people it will not be applicable to the 2020. We need to change the approach and all, right? So because of the needs, because of the lifestyle, we need to change and everything. The reason is very simple to that is 70 and this is 2020. What changes? The needs. What changes? The approach is changed. So if you want to achieve the objectives in 2020, you should be the different. You should update your the living approach. What people used to follow in the 70s, the same approach cannot be applicable in the 2020. Hope you understand me. Now these advantages becomes the limitations as well. Now what those limitations are? Firstly, if you define main, if you have a sequence, means first of all you start with the main, then you define the main functions. Main functions will be divided into the sub functions like this, right? So now just ask a question to yourself: why you define the main process? To process the data again. Why you define the functions? Functions is how you define the function. It's a processing block defined outside the main processing block. It is having its own objective and they linked up with it. But ultimately means main or functions are defined to process the data. But where is the data declared? If you declare the data means the variables which hold the data. If you declare the variables in the main, they are not accessible outside the main, they are accessible within the main only. So there is the scope limit. If you declare the variables or the data in the function 1, that is not accessible in the function 2, function 3, function 4, and as I just recently discussed, why we define the functions, whether it's a main function or the sub functions. Why we define the functions? We define the functions to process the data, but that data is not accessible. Getting me? So to make that data accessible in the main and in the various sub functions, so that they can process comfortably, they can process that particular data, we need to define this data in the global section. We need to define that data in the global sections, and once you define this data in the global sections, it lacks data security because it is accessible and processable anywhere else. And if something is accessible and processable anywhere else, it means the wear and tear, again understand the terminology, wear and tear of data is possible because everywhere it is accessible. Just understand the concept of public transportation and your own car. your own vehicle. Your own vehicle is here in this case. Public transportations cannot be managed and maintained well like private things are there. The same thing is over here. For manipulating data in the main and the various sub functions over there, we need to declare that data in the global sections. And if you declare some that data in the global section, it means a public section, the data protection lost. The access and the advantages, accessibility of data anywhere else. That like in the public transportation, anyone can use it. It is not restricted to specific individuals. In the similar manner, if you declare the data anywhere, you can use it. But whenever we are saying anywhere, means everywhere, and anyone can use it. So wear and tear of data is possible. In the similar manner, just take for the sake of understanding, take example of public transportation. As anyone and everywhere they are using, so it's tough to maintain like a like we are managing or we are taking care of our own private vehicles. The similar manner over here also, when you declare the data on the top and then try to, because as I said, why we are defining functions? We are defining functions to process the data. And if you are defining functions to process the data, data has to be there. And if you declare the data within the scope, it will not accessible to the other functions over there. And every functions, hope you agree with me, every function having their own scope limit, because they are defining. You cannot define a functions in another scope, right? So that is what the limit, it become a limitations. As data, we need to keep it global. So because of accessibility from anywhere else, the wear and tear of data is possible, and hence it become a first major limitation in structured and procedure programming about the data security, right? So this is the structure and procedure programming won't able to provide any data security. The second, top to bottom programming approach. Now, how you'll wonder how it become a limitations, because top to bottom programming approach over there. But yes, my friends, it become a limitations. Top to bottom means you cannot skip any. As I said, you cannot skip any step. First of all, you have to take a step 1 and then you can write the step 2. You don't have a liberty to go for the step 2 and all. So now you'll ask me the questions how it become a limitation. So it's very simple. How it become a limitations? Because the thing is, just take an example. If a carpenter want to design a chair. If a carpenter want to design a chair, what he will do? He will firstly gather the wood required. Step number 1. Step number 2, he will take the measurement and start processing that wood. Step number 3, he will give the shape to that particular chair. And finally, let's say step number 4, he will get the output. Now you will say, what the problem in that? It's that is the only sequence you have to follow. Nothing problem in that particular text over there. But just trying to understand one thing. Now, if the end result, if the product, what you design, the end result what you design, if that is not as per the requirements, now the question arises. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, step number 4. After that, you get the end result. Now, if you think that the final objective is not appropriate, do you have any chance to revert back? So the answer is no. We can't revert back now. The reason is you cannot convert that chair again back to the wood. You cannot reshape it because the things are already done. So that is the limitations in a top to bottom programming approach, right? If you take a step 1 and then step 2, that is okay, but you cannot go to directly step 2, or you can revert back to step 1 again, or you can directly jump to 5 and come back over there. right? Step 1 to 5 is possible, but 5 to 1 you cannot go in that manner. Reverse engineering is not possible, sort of. Okay, that is what I'm just use the terminology over there. That's a different concept of a reverse engineering. But anyway, so this become the limitations over there. Hope you're understanding it. In the nearby sessions again, whenever, because it's like a completely object-oriented programming concepts over there. So again, we need to discuss about all the stuffs, right? So just I'm trying to give you the examples to understand how exactly it become a limitations and advantage. Because first of all, as I said, it's a programming approach. It's a way of living life. It's a way of a programmer doing his programming, right? So we need to understand it. Okay, it's a concept. What is object-oriented programming concept? It's a concept. So programming is programming. Whether you're writing a program in C or C++ or Python or Java or .NET or a PHP, code is code. But what is the difference in that? The approach, right? Approach we need to change to achieve the certain objectives. Hope you are with me, right? Okay. So one and then top to bottom programming approach. And the next is one-to-one programming approach. Means what? One-to-one programming means like one thing is used for one reason only. Structure and procedural programming is actually follows one-to-one programming approach. One-to means one thing is used for one reason, one function, one definition, right? One variable. Okay, you should not, you may not have more than one copy of one thing. One thing is used for one reason. That is what the now you say what how it will become a limitation. Just understand by example. If you say that, okay, if you want to live in this particular country, there should not be duplicate names. One person should have one unique name. That's it. Now you will understand the difficulty. It's like whenever you are creating your Gmail IDs, what you find initially, if you are a beginner, you will think that, okay, my ID, okay, nobody had taken it. But once you try to create the ID, as every individual should have a unique email ID. So when you try to create it, you will find, okay, that already taken. So many combinations you are using, surname dot name and 1 2 3 4 5 6 sort of. So you find lot of difficulties because of one-to-one. So the similar manner in case of programming language like C or structure and procedural programming languages over there, one thing is used for one reason. And whenever you are saying one thing used for one reason, though it's a vast, right? Though means the quantity is small, but one thing is for one means obviously you will find the limitations. Just take an example. If there is a rule that if you want to live in this country, you should have a unique name, then you will find a difficulty. So probably all names, okay, you just understand your name, you will find the many fellows available of your name. But if there is the uniformity, okay, one person, a uniqueness, one person have a one name, then probably we need to write ABC1, ABC2, or sort of numbers we need to concat to form the, just like we are using in the creating the Gmail accounts and all, the email accounts and all. Okay, we need to have a combination of numbers as well with the names. That may be possibilities are there. So in this manner, one-to-one, though it's as I said, one-to-one means though it is maybe you have a large quantity, but if you say one-to-one, it means you cannot. There is a limitations. There is a limitations. Like if you just understand, if you have one person should use one dish only, and that dish used by one person to eat a food, it will not be used by other, right? So after cleaning, you cannot use it also. That person only have a right to use that. So obviously you need okay, there is a limitation, right? As there is no reusability at all. So one thing is used for one reason become a limitation as well. Limited library, because okay, if a as I said just recently, library is there, keywords and functions are there, but the purpose is only one. So if one to one is there is a limitation, right? So one thing can be used for one reason. So in case of another situations, if one person is taking a lunch or the dinner, that dish cannot be used for other. So if you have a larger quantity of dishes also, till then there is a shortage. Okay. So here it's a limited keywords and library also, though it's like in case of C, it looks very vast. Okay, 30-40 keywords and user defined functions you can. But till then, one thing is used for one reason. It means there is a limitation. And tough to maintain, as we said. Okay, because like there is a sequence over there. So if you want to just take an example, if you are coding at the line number 50 and you need some variables, what you can do, you have to again get back to the main and declare somewhere. So every time you have to scroll up, scroll down, so talk again. Then we are discussing not about the small programs, we are discussing about the projects. Languages are not designed just to solve the programs. In later stages, you'll understand that languages are designed to develop the various projects, and whenever you are planning to design various projects, obviously, okay, the length of the code, maybe you cannot count the length of the code, and you're not the alone and at the same time. So many like programmers might be writing the code and integrating together, so length it may be much more. So in that case also, whenever there is a larger and vast things are there, we need to take care of the maintainability, how I can maintain it and all, right? There is no reusability. You cannot reuse the code. Okay, one thing used for one reason. There is no reusability. Okay, so that all become the limitations of this structure and procedural programming. Guys, what we are discussing, that is okay. We are discussing about the programming approach. Up till now, we discuss about the programming approach by structure and procedural programming. The programming languages, language like a C, we are using. So what is that thing? It has to be in the sequence. One thing is for one reason. There is a main process divided into various process, right? So earlier we find the advantages of it, but that advantages, whenever we try to go to the next level, we'll find the limitation in it. And that limitations are first major limitations what we discussed, that it won't able to provide the data security. What is data security means? Because of we need to keep the data in the global section to make it accessible anywhere else. It become a limitation. So wear and tear of data is there. Another limitations, one-to-one use. One thing used for one reason. So though it is a larger quantity, it become a limitations. Right? One thing has to be used for many reasons as per the need. One thing has to be used for multiple reasons. Right? So that is called extensibility and all. Reusability. Right. Top to bottom programming approach also become limitations. As we said, okay, 1 to 5 is possible, 5 to 1 is not possible, or you cannot directly go to this 3 and all. So that becomes the problem of the maintainability. As I given you the example of a chair. Now you can't revert back once you design the chair, and if final outcome is not up to the mark, final chair is not as per the dimensions you defined prior, then you cannot revert back. And that is what the limitation of it, right? And to overcome all the limitations, they recommend a new programming approach, and that new programming approach is called as object-oriented programming approach. Again, I am saying we are not discussing or we are not learning any languages. We are learning the programming approaches. Earlier, we explored C because C follows structure and procedural programming approach. And C is the mother language of all the languages, and that is why we learn C. And now we are learning C to C++ to understand the limitations and advantages of structural programming and to overcome it. Because all the programming languages recently, what we are having like a .NET, Java, PHP, Python, every language recently we are using, that all comes under the category of object-oriented programming. Hope you got me now. So there is no direct step to the object-oriented. First of all, we have to understand the structure and procedural, how to write the main process and sub-process and the variables and the looping, branching, controlling, and after that, we need to change now the programming approach to the object-oriented. So slowly we are going to the going towards the productions, right? Production of the softwares, the approach of the designing softwares and all, right? Now to overcome these all the limitations what we discussed up till now, we have a new programming approach, and that programming approach called as object-oriented programming. Now object-oriented programming is obvious. To overcome that all the limitations what we discussed, that top to bottom programming approach, data security was not there, one thing used for one reason, that to overcome that all the things, okay, object-oriented programming approach provides data security. Object-oriented programming provides you the ability to use bottom to top approach, define the things anywhere else and integrate. It's a matter of division and integration, right? Just take an example. In case of C, everything can be handled by one guy, and in case of C++ or object programming, we can divide the work as per their expertise and then call them. Sort of. Okay, this kind of, so means one thing used for one reason and one thing used for many reasons. That the things are there. So data security is there because we are accumulating that all the data, means we are not supposed to keep the data global. What is data security means? In case of C, the programming approach was main function, sub functions, and to make that data accessible in the main as well as in the various functions, we need to keep the data in the global sections. Now object-oriented programmer thinks in this way. Why we need to keep the data in the global sections? Why not we collect? Why not we encapsulate? Why not we bring together that all the data and all the functions in one scope? Now if the data and the functions are available in the one scope, so there is no need of keeping it global. So there is no need of keeping it global sections, because main function having a different scope, functions having different scope, data was not accessible. They were exchanging the data. We discussed about the call by value, call by reference and all. They were exchanging the data, and that is the reason we are keeping the data in the global section. So why not they capsulate together in one scope? Hope you're getting me now. Why not that entire data, why not that entire functionalities will be within a one scope? And if it is all is in a one scope, there is no sort of scope limit. We can refer it, call it within, because everything is available in the one scope, and that is what actually, and in this manner we can achieve the data security as well. Just to take a general example over there, that as I said over there, here in this case, that everybody is like, if you are using a public transportation, till then certain responsibilities and duties everybody have to perform to protect it. Are you getting it? So like wear and tear of data should not be there. The accessibility limit, okay, you can check it. Okay, if you want to use that facility, these are the rules, these are the responsibility, these are the duties every individual have to perform, right? So instead of using global accessing, make it a local accessing, and then everything has to be wrapped together, that functionality and data we wrap together, and that become a class over there. We'll be discussing and we'll be understanding this thing in more better way whenever you develop the programs over there. So means instead of defining functions, instead of defining the data in the different scope, you wrap together. Grammar will be defined first, rules and regulations will be defined first, and then the rest objects will be used that. So in this manner, that they try to overcome that all the limitations what we discussed up till now, top to bottom, bottom to, here is a bottom to top. Data security was lacking, Here data security is achieved by wrapping there all the data and functions together. One-to-one use over there, here one-to-many. One thing used for many reasons. We'll be discussing that, how we can use it. So as I said, one-to-one means limitations. Reason, though it's a larger quantity, but till you find the shortage, just like the example of email and all. Here one thing used for many reasons. Reusability, you can reuse the code, reconstruct the extensibility, maintainability. You can maintain well, you can debug well, you can extend it well, you can reuse it well. So these all advantages will be getting in the object-oriented programming. Hope you understand now. Again, I reiterating, in case of C, we are learning the programming approach called as structure and procedure-oriented. Top to bottom programming approach, main, functions, global data. Here in this case, no global data. It is wrapped in a class. Data and functions we are encapsulating in one scope. Right? Data security is achieved. One thing used for many reasons: reusability, maintainability, extensibility. These are all the features of object-oriented programming. Right? Let us focus on the programming so that we get the things very clear about all the limitations, advantages, and approach over there. Right? So let us develop one simple program firstly to understand the approach of programming language like C. SOP approach, SOP and POP, structure-oriented programming and procedure-oriented programming. Let us say you want to develop a code for performing arithmetics with the two numbers. So I will do it. You want to perform arithmetics with the two numbers. Now, you know, to perform arithmetics with the two numbers, you may write a function like add for addition, subtract for subtraction, right? Multiplication, division, etc. Just we consider this. For the arithmetics, we have these things. And now the problem is to perform arithmetics, at least we need the two numbers. And if add procedure is defined outside the main, so again, if you declare the variable and accept the data, to add these two variables, again there is a trouble. We need to refer to that process and call that value different variables if required and all, right? Add, subtract, multiplication, division. So how it will be possible that main also main is a process. Whenever you run the program, it will call from the main. Main will also access the same variables, and the same variable will be accessible to the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So for that reason, obviously you need to declare the variables on the top. Int equals to 5, int b equal to 7. As I just recently discussed, if you declare the variables on the top of the main to make it accessible anywhere else, it will become a global data. Alright, now here you can access it, printf. Here A is the value of B is the value of B. And then if you want to perform the addition, you had given a call to the add function. Now this add function will, now that just A and B are declared as a global, so it is accessible in the main as well as it is accessible in the functions also. So you can directly A plus B can be added and written back. here we can, I'm just like demonstrating how data security will be like, how we need a global data and all, right? It's a demonstrative code of programming approach. So return a minus b, then return a into b, return a divided by b. Now you will understand one thing, the one copy of global data we are accessing in the main, we are accessing in the functions, so wear and tear, the same amount data will be used by multiple fellows or multiple sections, so there is obviously greater chances of wear and tear out. Wear and tear out data means, okay, that data may be updated copy will be available everywhere else. So here addition and then subtraction, then multiplication, and you need to change your, okay, subtraction, multiplication, and division remains. Okay. So I'm developing this program in C. You can develop in C++ as well by using cout and scene, but it doesn't, if you write the same kind of approach, it become, though you are using a library of C++, but the programming approach will still remain structure and procedure oriented, right? Anyway, so that's why I'm not even using C++ programs also for these reasons, because this programming approach is followed by C. You save your code, okay, by maybe SOP1 SOP.C, and just try to run it. We'll get the result like this. A and B are the two variables. A is equal to 5, B equal to 7. Addition is 12, subtraction is minus 2, and then like multiplication 35, division sort of. So you get the results. I'm just, like as I said, I'm just writing a demonstrative code for this reason. So this programming approach, where you need to, here in this case you will find that you are bound to declare the global data, because you need to access it in the main, and you need to access it within the function definitions and as well. And if you are dealing with the call by values, different pair of variables, they are manipulating, their updated value will not be passed on to that all things are there. So while in the structure and procedural programming approach, though it is a top to bottom approach over there, it lacks the data security, because you will find that, okay, everywhere it is accessible, you can process the data, and that processed data will be updated copy will be assigned to the other. So everyone have a rights to update, everyone can update that data. So wear and tear, again I'm using the better terminology, wear and tear of data is possible. I'm saying, okay, there may be chances of wearing and tear on data, and data may be, because whatever the logic you're writing logic for processing data, but by applying that logic, if the data get lost or data get corrupted, that is not the advantage, right? Because of wear and tear of data. Let us say public transportations you are using, because anyone, there is no restriction, anyone can use it, but because of that, if the government is going in the losses, if the transportations is getting damaged, right? So, or just like you know one thing, okay, if something is happened, okay, people comes on the road and damage the public transportations. They are not damaging their own private vehicles, they're damaging the public transportation. So obviously it's a loss of everyone. So in the similar manner here is, so the wear and tear and data are possible in the main, and as it is accessible in the main and the various functionalities, right? So to overcome that, what is recommended then? This is your structure and procedure oriented programming. Just write the code for the object oriented programming over there. Here we need to, okay, OOP codes. right? So here, okay, header files you can replace. I use stream.h. Or your many.h. As I said, OOP follows the first thing. You're not supposed to declare the global data. Second thing, you should follow the bottom to top. So your main has to be in the bottom. Just don't cut the wood and define the chair. First of all, you think what kind of size, what size of chair, what color of chair, what kind of dimensions required. First of all, last thing you need to think firstly, sort of. So you, in case of C++, we need to define the first thing firstly, that is the class. Maybe you are defining class as by the name of arithmetic class over there, right? Bottom to top means for performing arithmetics, what you require, the two numbers at least. Okay, you declare int a comma b. Okay, you declare int a comma b. These two variables required, just skeleton, just the grammar over there. Then what you need, the functions. Let's say integer add, return a plus b, not a problem. Then you define all the functions, integer subtract, return a minus b, integer multiplication, return a into b, integer division, return a divided by b. Now here it's a end of class. End of class in C++ has to be specify the semicolon, right? So the first thing what I did, I collect that all the data and functions together. I collect that all data and functions together, right? Now the question arises, it become a grammar over there. So first of all, what I will do to protect the data further, I'll just like explain later on. I'll keep this data in the private section. Data has to be private. As I said, you need to follow the rules and regulations. So this can be accessible within the class, because first of all, I overcome the scope limit. Everything I keep it in one scope. Then I restrict it. To further protect that data, I will keep the data in the private section, and then I will keep that all the functionalities. Means no one can access this directly. If you want to access it, access through this sort of. Okay, and then I'll define some more functionalities like void get data to initialize this data, and I will write cout enter values of a, enter value of a, c in a, enter value b, c in b. Now that you able to enter these values, so we define the function called as get data, and we will define the function called as show data as well. These are the user defined functions. Okay, you can write any name. Get the data, show the data. Okay, value of a, the value of b, and you know, add, subtraction, multiplication, everything I keep it in the one section. So first of all, as I said, what I said, I'll encapsulate these all the data and functionalities together. To protect it further, that data I will keep it in the private sections. If you keep the data in the private section, it means even the object is not going to access it directly. No one can access it. Just like entry restricted sort of. If you go to if you are going to the plane, you cannot, the passengers cannot be directly go to the cabin. Okay, entry restricted. So they are having, this is the public sections and the private sections, sort of things are there. Just I am giving an example to understanding further, right? So if it is the public transportations, they cannot like the passenger have to have their own role and responsibilities. They cannot directly go to the the driver's seat and try to operate the vehicle. No, it is not possible. It's not a private vehicle, so you cannot operate it. You cannot drive it. Though you may be the driver, but you cannot. Driver means like you have a driving skills, but you cannot use over there. That your role and responsibility is different, right? Hope you understand it. So that is what, like, okay, I'll define it private. Private is a keyword. Data will be the private because I have to protect the data. No accessibility directly. Right? Public means functionalities are there that can be accessible. So void get data, it's all user defined functions. I define for get the data of these variables, and show data to display the data, add, subtract, multiply. So I define that all the functionalities which I need for the performing arithmetic to number. And so I am following the bottom to top programming approach. I am following the bottom to top programming. So the last things for performing arithmetic needed that I am accumulating together, and then I am going with the men. So here I'll say clear the screen, right? And then I'll create the object of this arithmetic class. Okay, so arith 80 becomes an object of arith class, right? It's like integer a you are writing. So arith is a class. It's a user defined type. User defined is all the procedures, and 80 become the object of it. Means 80 will get the rights now to access these all the functionalities. 80 will get the rights to access these functionalities. That's hence it become a user defined type. I'll discuss it further to understand it more clear. But right now, arithmetic 80. Now I can say that 80 dot get data. Now 80 object will get the rights to access this get data. So you can get data will get a call, right? And you can enter the values of A and B. Then I can say 80 dot show data. You can print the values. Then cout whatever the data, addition, and here 80 dot add. You can perform the addition, you can perform the subtraction. Now everything you cannot directly access it, okay? Like a global function, they are not the global functions. It is wrapped in a class called as arith. So the object of that particular class only have a rights to access. So subtract that, all this add, subtract, multiply, get data, show data cannot be accessed directly. You have to access by you have to create in the main, you have to create the object arithmetic 80, and then by using or any other object over there, it's a user defined type. In last sessions we discussed about the user defined type, and three types of data: the primitive type, the derived and extended type, and the third one is user defined type. User defined means user want to create its own data type over there. So here class comes under the category of user defined type. User can able to create its own data type, sort of. Multiplication, division. Okay. So what we did here in this case, to convert that limitations what we have in a structured and procedural programming, we use a object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming means we should follow the bottom to top programming approach. Data security has to be there, means like instead of keeping that data in the global sections, you wrap that data together in one container that is called as class, and that process is called as encapsulation. Encapsulation means capsulate in one container, combine that all the data and functionalities in one thing, okay, one section, and that is called as encapsulation, wrapping of data and functions together, as we discussed in a object-oriented programming approach, that all the data and all the functions, why not we capsulate together, and then we create the objects and then refer these all the functions, and then we process the data in this manner. First thing, data security has to be achieved, data has to be protected. Just understand another example of that, public transportation and private transportations, you'll understand. Okay, to understand something very clear, we need to take some examples out of it, and that examples will give the idea. Just take example of a public transportations. There is more wear and tear and data over there. In the private transportation, we take every individual take care of their vehicles, so they remain proper. It will well maintained and all this stuff. So if the public transportations also rules and regulations can be defined, driver have a role, your bus conductor having your own role, or the crew members having their own roles, the passengers having their own role. So in this manner, okay, that all the functionalities we can wrap together, and that wear and tear of data we can avoid, right? So if you just like save this code again, and I'm saving this code by OOP1.C++. I'm using a C++ library over here, and reload it. OOP1, yes, here it is, and run it. Enter the values of A. I said 5. Enter the value of B, for example 7, and then here is the outcome. Alright, the values of A is 5, B is 7, addition, subtraction, multiplication. The same output what I get in a C program by using a structure-oriented programming, I update the same logic and the same code by using the object-oriented programming here. So let us understand the code again. The header files. First of all, bottom to top programming approach. So we have to define the class. What is class? The collections of data and functions together. Instead of keeping the data in the global sections, we are wrapping it together. So data has to be defined in the private sections, that no access is there. As they given examples, the passenger cannot have access to the cabin in the plane or the bus over there. Though they have driving skills, but they can't drive the public transportations. So in the simple manner, public, that all the data, get data, show data, that all the functionalities are wrapped together, so that we can protect the data and we can achieve the data security, and we can achieve the bottom to top programming approach. Because the last things, okay, as I said, carpenter take the wood, cut the wood, and after processing the furniture, the chair, if it is not proper, he cannot revert back. Here in this case, okay, we yet to use it. We first of all think about all the stuff, so how the behavior, the rules and regulations of everything we define, and the bottom part, the last part, we think firstly, and then we use it over there. All right. So in this manner, and then we create the object. So this AT object, it's a user defined type of things. It got all the rights to access that all the functionalities defined in the class, and then we use it over there. Hope you understand it, right? So this is the first sessions for the object-oriented programming. So we have to learn about limitations of SOP POP, advantages of SOP POP, and then to overcome all the limitations, we have another approach called as object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming is a need of today, because all the languages or the compilers what we are using, well, Python, just understand these are not the languages, or the compilers. They are designing for productions, right? So they have their own features and advantages, and as per their advantages, we have to use them. So object-oriented programming is more important to achieve all the objectives and of the recent needs over that. Thank you very much.